I went a long time without watching Fright Night Part 2. I was skeptical to watch the film because of how much I loved the original movie. Not just that, but the film is impossible to track down. I normally will either buy or at least rent every single movie I talk about, at least I have been doing it over the last couple years. But this movie is impossible to get a hold of, at least in a legitimate way that doesn't involve torrenting or bootlegging. Every single home video release of the film has gone out of print, and there's no plans of it being re-released for some strange reason. I honestly can't understand why. It's like the studio were trying to make people forget about it, which would kind of make sense. The film was a critical and commercial failure, but it's received such a large cult following, almost on the same level as the original movie. I don't understand why a company like Scream Factory in the US or Arrow Video in the UK can't get a hold of the rights and re-release the film finally. Many people consider this to be one of the most underrated and unfairly forgotten horror sequels ever made, and watching it for the first time recently, I completely agree. I thought this film was really good. Like, as 80s horror sequels go, you can't really get a lot better than this. Fright Night Part 2 is set 3 years after the original movie. The actors of Charlie and Peter reprise their roles, which I think really works in the film's favour. The actors are great in the role, and I don't think anyone could have quite filled their shoes. Charlie has received years of therapy, which has led him to believe that Jerry Dandridge in the first film was actually a serial killer who hypnotized him, his girlfriend, and Peter into believing that he was a vampire. Charlie is now at college with his new girlfriend Alex. One night, Charlie sees 4 coffins being taken into a car. The people who took the coffins into the car start to appear all over the place. One of them, called Regine, starts to draw Charlie in. He starts seeing her in his visions and his dreams. Later, he sees her attacking one of his friends. He then decides to run to Peter and says that the vampires are back. While investigating, they find the vampires at a party. While there, they see Charlie's friend, who doesn't actually have any bite marks on him after all. The vampires then claim that they are actually just performance artists. Charlie believes this, but later on Peter notices that they don't cast reflections. Regine then reveals to Peter that she is actually Jerry Dandridge's sister and that she intends to take out her revenge. One night while Charlie is asleep, she comes in and bites him on the neck. Then he slowly turns into a vampire. So Alex and Peter have to team up together to save Charlie and defeat the vampires. Right off the bat, and I promise I didn't make that pun intentionally, this film is a completely different movie to the original, and I think that's something that really works in its favour. I was expecting it to literally just be the same story repeated, but no, they take things in a different direction. The film actually has a very different tone to the original. Although the original movie had a lot of comedic moments, this film kind of focuses on the comedy side a lot more. The film is incredibly ridiculous all throughout, but it really does work well. The jokes are actually surprisingly really funny. But as well as this, there is also a lot of atmosphere in the film. The direction of the film is really solid, which surprised me considering that the film was directed by Tommy Lee Wallace, the director of Halloween 3 and It, 2 films which I've reviewed in the past, and if you've seen those reviews, you'll know that I am really not a fan of either of them. There are a lot less special effects in this movie, but when they are there, they still surprisingly look really fantastic. In fact, there are some moments where they actually work just as well as the original, maybe even slightly a little bit better. But what I think really keeps this film entertaining is the characters and acting from all the lead actors. These characters are incredibly fun to watch, and their performances really help this also. The dynamic between Roddy McDowall and William Ragsdale is once again really great. These characters are great when they're together and also when they're separate. Not just this, but Tracy Lind as Alex is great also. Her character is surprisingly really fun to watch, and I was always on her side when Charlie did something stupid and she got angry at him. She did a great job, and I honestly massively preferred her to Amy from the first film. Overall, I think Fright Night Part 2 is a really good sequel. I was worried that it wouldn't be quite as good as the first movie, and although it definitely isn't, it's still a really solid and incredibly underappreciated horror sequel. If you like the first movie, I absolutely recommend trying to watch this film somehow. I don't know if it's on YouTube or what, I just torrented it somewhere. And seriously, I really hope it gets an official home video release soon because it's just ridiculous. Why isn't it out yet? I give Fright Night Part 2 an 8 out of 10.